Sup dorks, we're making a co-op looter where you play as gnomish crow creatures that collect junk for their goddess. Form a murder with your friends and raid the unfaithful Lord Pixys domain, stealing as much as you can before DoorDash Beetle flies you out. We've been working on this game for only a few months now, and we want to show y'all our progress, so here's our first attempt at a devlog. Before we jump in too deep though, we should probably introduce ourselves. I'm Yukon Wainzak, and I run Snoozy Kazoo, a Massachusetts-based 6-person indie game studio. We're the dumbasses behind Turnip commits tax evasion and Turnip robs a bank. Our goal has always been to make really dumb games, and our newest game is no exception. It's called Hobnobbers, and if you have a keen eye, you can see there's no little turnip in it. We wanted to make something new, and after 4 years of staring at that stupid little turnip freak, we realized it was time to take a break. This game is definitely going to be a smaller one, so don't get too worried about Turnip Boy just yet. We just want to make something slightly smaller while being as creative as we can. For the last 4 years, I forced my team to stare at a turnip, so this time I decided to let them be the visionaries by hosting a pitch competition. Everyone made a silly pitch deck about a game they wanted to make, and we all gathered at a coffee shop to pitch each other our game ideas. We had some crazy ideas that we would slowly leak on our blog, but we eventually all decided on these little crow called Hobs. So we decided to make Hobnobbers, and since we can't name our game Simple Things, we wrote in the lore that Hobnobbers is an insult for Hobs, the player characters. Anyways, these Hobs are these little crow creatures that serve their lady goddess. They used to be gnomes, but once the lady goddess's heart was corrupted after being cheated on, they turned dark and twisted. The Hobs raid Lady Goddess's ex's domain, stealing everything they can to attempt to fill the hole in her heart. While it's a tragic story or whatever, we figured people would simp for her and want to collect shinies for a MILF goddess. After deciding on the game, we hopped into our PCs and started jotting down the game idea into a GDD, or game design document. This allows us to explain the game to people by sending them a link instead of going on a 20-minute tangent, and it also helps us document what exactly we're making. At Snoozy, we typically establish several design pillars that all future ideas will have to face before we decide to implement them. These are the pillars we decided on for Hobnobbers. Chaotic action. We want to make sure everything we implement pushes the player in over-the-top emergency situations. Ideally, we stack mechanics like crazy and make loot runs crazy as hell. Jaded whimsy. People know us for making fake cozy games, and we have to deliver on that front. We want to present them with a fantasy environment with a good chunk of edgy twists to add some cynicism. Horde of Hobs. We want the player to understand that Hobs are worthless, and the Lady Goddess will discard any Hob that isn't making her feel slightly better. Customization. We want the player to dress up their Hob and give them sick drip. And risk versus reward. The more you put yourself in danger, the more we reward you. After building the design pillars, we fleshed out the gameplay loop. If you don't know what a gameplay loop is, think of a game like Temple Run. You start with nothing, not getting very far in your runs. After collecting some coins and dying, you can spend those coins to get upgrades and power-ups, which then lead you to playing another run and getting a little bit farther. That's a gameplay loop. Hobnobbers is kind of similar in that regard. Players loot Lord Pixys' domain, leading them to gain a ton of items to give to the Lady Goddess. Players then get graded on their hull by a character we are keeping a secret, which gives them coins or something. Then the player returns to the hub, where they can buy weapons and drip to use in their future runs. Alright, now let's finally start making this damn game. To do that, we have to build an MVP, or minimal viable product. At Snoozy, we split up goals into small chunks we call milestones. We started by tinkering with the art style, and building the player controller, networking, and shinies. Based on the work we did here, we started planning out the rest of the game's development cycle, mainly figuring out what we needed to do and how long it would take. Let's catch up with the team and see what they're working on.
Hobnobbers has been a really fun technical challenge, and something I've had a great time working on. The biggest challenge so far has been the level generation in the mall. Originally, the mall was just a pre-built map, but we decided to add more variety to runs by randomly generating the level instead. The way the generation works is the mall generates from the bottom up, starting as a pit where the beetle lands, and each floor tells the floor above it information about the hallways that are allowed to be generated. Things like if there's a room below, above, or if we're at the ceiling. This allows us to have the iconic vertical segments with walkways between, while also giving us the freedom to design rooms that do their own thing and are self-contained. Once a floor is generated, it also needs to generate the stores inside of it. Stores are placed manually with cutouts in the level design to allow for them, and once a store is generated, it also randomizes the loot within to add more visual variety. Levels are designed with a Blender template that shows allowed placements and gives an easy way to add a store. This system has required a lot of fine-tuning and bug fixing, especially to make it work in multiplayer, but it has vastly improved the experience already. This is only one part of many more systems that we are developing to make Hobnobbers a truly chaotic and fun experience.
There can be a lot going on in a game like Hobnobbers, even in early builds. Rather than focusing on player feedback or polish, I've been thinking a lot about how sound can help guide players through space. I've been having fun designing different songs, sound effects, and subtle atmospheres that help each hob understand where they are and what might be going on around them. In such a chaotic environment, I want players to be curious about what lies down each corridor. Maybe shinies, useful items, or danger. Risk or reward, audio has been essential in communicating to players what lies ahead.
The initial concept of Hobnobbers got me back to thinking about games I love to play with my friends in basements and on each other's couches. Although I never owned it, or even the console, I had a lot of stupid fun playing Nintendo Land's Animal Crossing game called Sweet Day on the Wii U. I really liked the concept of having to stuff little candies in your head while running around trying to survive. It got me thinking a lot about games I've been trying out more these days, like extraction shooters and stuff like Lethal Company. Another big inspiration for this game's development is, of course, Katamari. I think the longer you look at Hobnobbers, it becomes clearer and clearer that these two definitely share a few bones. There's something really beautiful about collecting toy-like objects, and I really want players to feel like, ironically, they're crows themselves, unable to resist collecting more and more of the shinies laying around in the environment. A fun fact about the initial design of the Hobs is that they actually started from this simple MS Paint drawing I puked out while gaming with my friends. I've always been fascinated by little forest creatures, and with the recent rise of gnome culture and the internet, they've definitely been on my mind. However, something didn't quite sit right with me, so I turned them into crows, which fits a lot more with their love of trinkets. Funny enough, this sort of nicely complements their lore, as they also made this transformation canonically as a result of the Lady Goddess's wrath. That old MS Paint design ended up being used anyways in the trailer though, so...
Hey, my name is Jen, and I'm the creative director here at Snoozy Kazoo. Both the Hobs and Pixys are very greedy little critters, and how they display their greed really helps us design their characters and their environments. Imagine you are walking through the woods, and you see a little fairy circle, and in that fairy circle, you see the thing you want the most. Maybe they're little AirPods, maybe it's a little tree. But whatever it is, it entices you enough to go into the fairy circle, and when you do, you get transported to essentially a fantasy, whimsical pixie version of the American Dream Mall. That's essentially what the Pixies represent. They represent a more modern take on greed. When I think of the Pixies, words like Red 40, microplastics, toxicity, oil spills, they all come to mind. And when we design for the Pixies, we really want them to be bright, very plasticky, very sparkly, and overall enticing, but bad for you, like candy. Now, when I think of the Hobs, I think of a more medieval type of greed. They remind me of storybook monarchs or a dragon hoarding its gold. When we think about the Hobs, we like to think about folklore, so more muted tones, more earthy crunchy. I want the Hobs to feel like they're emerging from a witch's hut, ready to do their little master's bidding.
Alright, that's enough of that. Your game's announcement is incredibly important, as it's the first time the public sees what the hell you've been working on. While a bad announcement won't completely kill your game, it can definitely affect its future, so you want it to be good. A while ago, we applied to be in Mix's Fall Showcase, and to our surprise, we got in. We were excited to participate since we did previously with the Turnip games, and we felt like it was a good place to get our game in front of an audience who already kinda knew us. For Turnip Robs a Bank, we were able to show the game in an earlier state due to us commissioning an entire animated opening sequence that spelled out exactly what people could expect. Unfortunately, we didn't have the flexibility to do that this time around, simply because of the time constraints that we had to get the actual trailer together. To get the trailer done, we decided on a mural that we believed would be achievable. This being said, we only had 2 weeks to get the trailer done, and we ended up finding ourselves crunching to meet that deadline. We take crunch very seriously at Snoozy Kazoo. I mean, it's called Snoozy Kazoo. Since then, we've been working on ways to prevent this in the future, but it doesn't erase the fact that we did in fact crunch, and we ended up crashing pretty hard afterwards. This all being said, I'm incredibly proud of the trailer and the team for pulling it off. We managed to solidify a lot of the game's story very quickly, and we churned out something that looks extremely playable very early in development. Despite some people finding the game page early on our site, the announcement went pretty well. We had some positive press, our community spammed in the chat, and everyone clapped. That being said, the work had just begun. Now we have to get started on the continuous marketing we have to do for the game. From contacting news outlets, making content and reels, promoting the new developments of the game, and funneling people into our channels. We have a lot of work cut out for us. Our biggest problem right now though is that the game has only been in development for a few months and it looks the part. We learned the hard way that we can showcase our 2D games this early, but if we treat 3D the same, we're only going to show people a game that looks kind of empty. That being said, we've had a lot of positive feedback during playtests and to concepts that we're currently working on, so we're not too discouraged. We just have to work on showing y'all what we see, and it's become our focus as we enter the new year. Right now, we have Hobnobbers' Steam page up for wishlist, so please pound that wishlist button as hard as you can. We're going to be working on updating a lot of the game's visuals and more crazy mechanics to show y'all how bonkers it can be. We'll be releasing short vids and more devlogs soon for you to slurp up with your eye holes. Thank you for watching our first devlog. If you want to follow along with everything we got going on, feel free to join our newsletter in the description. Peace out, dorks.